welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today to finish a series together. So if you watched the first installment of this, I think in January, my goal for this year was to finish more series. Often I am a little bad. And when I like a first book, I just go out and I buy the rest of the series. And it's not a good habit to have, but alas, I have it. And the point of the series is to keep me strict in order to finish these books and finish them right away. Because sometimes I will read one book and then it'll take me 3 years to read the next one. One series that I absolutely fell in love with and read 2 books from was the Ember in the Ashes series. So I have the last 2 books left. I was waiting for this one to come out in paperback because I just think the construction of the series to be absolutely phenomenal, and the story within to obviously be just as good. I have been really enjoying this series, so I want to continue it with you all. The point of this vlog is really for me to finish and for me to give my thoughts on it, so I really try not to spoil, but because obviously they are series books, if you are more sensitive to spoilers, I would just suggest to skip this vlog. But if you can handle minor spoilers or don't really care, or you finished the series, please stick around. So I started this series back in 2020 at the peak of the pandemic. I was just looking for stuff that was fun. I was looking for easy fantasy, and Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir really gave that for me. It was also at a time that I wasn't really filming, obviously, as we all experienced during the pandemic. I really wasn't doing well, and filming was just one of those things that was sometimes a really big motivator for me, and sometimes it was detrimental, and mostly that was editing, because I have no problem filming. I have no problem putting on a show, being hilarious. Editing is something that I despise sometimes. So the first book, I ended up giving it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one because I was going into it just expecting a typical YA fantasy, and I ended up being really wrong. I loved our 2 main characters, Lila and Elias. They were complex and interesting, and they both had moral conflicts that I found to be really interesting to follow. The plot was absolutely jam-packed, and usually I'm not that I'm not a plot-driven reader, but it doesn't need to be a high action plot for me to enjoy the book. But this one was packed with action, and I absolutely loved it. I sped through the audiobook, and that's part of the reason why I really enjoyed this series, because I could just listen to it. It's easy, the story is engaging, the conversations that we're having are complex and morally great, but I'm listening to it and just enjoying the ride. Similarly, A Torch Against the Night, which is the second book, was also a 4 stars for me. In this one, I think this is where the plot kind of dragged down, so I would have given it a 3.5 if I was just basing it on plot. But because I really just enjoy being in the world and enjoy the stories, I ended up giving it a 4 stars. I think Tahir did a really interesting job in this one in opening the world and opening it up from what we know. Similarly, I did not want to put this audiobook down. The fast-paced plot was still engaging enough for me to fly through the audiobook. And in this one, we really had a development of 2 major villain characters, Helen and Marcus, which I absolutely loved. I love villains. I love morally gray villains as well. I like when they're a little bit conflicted. Helen and Marcus were key to me enjoying the second book as well. So that is why I am so excited to continue. So we're going to start off this vlog with obviously the 3rd book in a series, A Reaper at the Gates. In this one, we are following Helen, who is now the Bloodstrike and desperate to protect the lives of her sisters and everyone in the Empire, as the Emperor Marcus is growing increasingly violent. Laya is trying to stop this person named the Nightbringer, and Elias is working as another figure in this world, in the politics of the world. Anyways, I'm not going to get too much into spoilers, but I'm very excited to pick this one up. I might watch a summary of the first 2 books just to really get into it, and then I will start listening to A Reaper at the Gates. I wanted to give a quick update because I did get 50 pages into A Reaper at the Gates, and I wanted to just update on my thoughts. The first thing I immediately noticed is how good Sabaa Tahir is at re-including people into her world, into the story. There are reminders of the previous plots within the narrative of this book, especially in these first 50 pages. It's not done annoyingly. It's really there to just serve as a reminder, and it's really helping me because they are like quick little shots at what happened in the previous plots, and it's reminding me. So I'm like, yes, thank you, Queen. I'm remembering stuff. A couple of things I want to mention. Helen is definitely my favorite character, and that was really developed in A Torch Against the Night in the second book. And it's only further being developed in this one. I'm really excited to see where Helen's character goes, just because she is such a fascinating member of the Empire and such a fascinating character. Laia and Elias, their stories are kind of developing, but they definitely aren't as interesting as Helen's chapters as of right now. And I think just by the basis of this front cover, I do think that Helen's character will take the forefront of this book, which is exciting. But I'm still interested to see where Laia and Elias's characters end up, or the journey of the story, just not as much as Helen right now, especially because there is a lot writing on Helen's success in this book. And I think that that's a very motivating reason to continue the novel. Similarly, like I said in the introduction, Marcus is absolutely an intense villain. There is a specific scene that just happened right now in Helen's chapter that made me like physically like cringe. I just think that Marcus is fascinating, and the guilt that he feels for what he had to do in order to become emperor is clearly haunting him, and he takes it out on the people that are around him. And I think that that is such a fascinating character dynamic, I think, between him and Helen. So that's where I am right now. I'm currently cooking some quinoa to have as a little salad later, but on my lunch break I do go to the gym, so that will be something that I will be doing in roughly 20 minutes. I won't be listening to the audiobook there, so I will see you whenever I have something else to update. Hello, so I just wanted to give another update for A Reaper at the Gates, because I am currently almost 200 pages into this and still absolutely loving it. Like 200 pages, I blew through this yesterday. I'm just really enjoying the overall characters. I think the characters are Sabatahir's main strong point, especially with this series. But from what I've read from Sabatahir outside of this series, her characters are always really captivating and they always pull you in, and I don't think anything's different about this series. In regards to the plot, I would say if you've read the first 2 books, it is a tad hard to get into this series because a lot happens within those 2 books to then place the events here. Obviously, our 3 characters have really grown since the first book, but where they are in regards to what they are doing in the plot is vastly different. At least in the first 2, they were kind of always somehow intermingling, but right now they are all on 3 separate missions. I can confidently say that Helen is my favorite character. She's always been the character that I'm really, really intrigued by, but in this book specifically, she is just far more developed, I find, in regards to her characterization, her personality, her motivations, more than the other 2 characters, I find. Laia and Elias have more of a fantastical aspect, and it's not that Helen doesn't have fantastical aspects, because obviously, as you could see, this is a world where masks are placed on these soldiers' faces, and they eventually like blend into the face. So there is some sort of magic. Helen also has, I think, like healing powers of some sort. But Helen has the most like political plot line, which I think is why I enjoy her the most, because I think politically she is involved in more of the stuff that I find interesting in books, whereas Laia and Elias are doing more magical stuff, which I feel like I'm growing away from with YA specifically. So we'll see how this develops. I am listening to it today while I do some work. I definitely think I could probably finish this today. If you're into these books, I think you can finish them very quickly. It's not the hardest books to get into. It's not the hardest plot to follow. And Sabatahir's writing is extremely easy to get into. So I will update you if I have anything interesting to say, or I might update you at the end. Very excited to finish this, and I'm finally excited to get back into this series. I want to try filming like this because I've never filmed in cinematic before. I'm curious. This clip is just purely for me, just to see. Am I wearing the same top as yesterday? Yes, please don't judge me, okay? It's that time in Canada where it's like not hot enough to wear t-shirts in the house, but it's hot enough that you turn your heating down. So I'm like cold, but I'm not freezing to put my heating on. So I have to put a sweater on, and I usually just take the one that's on the floor, and that's this one, okay? It's my comfort sweater. Let's not. So yesterday I did get roughly 350 pages into this. So I have about 100 pages left. However, I could not continue because I was being harassed by Zoe and Lucy to start Flawless, the Canadian cowboy romance that we are buddy reading now. So I did get 50 pages into that, but that's not important for this vlog. I'm really enjoying this. I think this is the most fantastical book in the series so far. It's adding a lot to the lore and some aspects of Jin lore that I don't really know. And I think that that's really interesting in how they're playing with memories and crossing over and stuff like that, specifically with Elias and Laya. Helen's storyline is still my favorite so far, but in actuality, all three of them are very, very, very interconnected characters. So if you're following one story, it very well leads into one of the other aspects of the other character's story. So I will definitely be finished this today, and I'll update you when I'm done, just my general thoughts about it. And then I will try to really move into A Sky Beyond the Storm before I pick this up. They are in Europe, so I have hours at night that they do not. Also editing my May TBR, and hopefully that will go up tomorrow from today when I'm editing it. So you will see it before this vlog. And that's it. That is my day plan so far. So catch you later. So we finished our first book of the vlog. Oh my god, we match. Anyways, we finished our first book of the vlog. I'm so happy. I finished this really quickly, like within 3 days. And this is why I want to do this challenge, to show myself that I don't need to put books off for months because I'll get them done. So just in terms of a rating for me for Reaper at the Gates, I did end up giving this book 4 stars. This series, I've said it several times in this vlog already, it's just like candy to me. It's so easy to read. It's so fun. Tahir is so great at writing fast-paced plot with really engaging characters. I found that the character interactions and developments in this book were really the forefront of this middle book, leading into what I'm assuming will be a very plot-driven finale. Each character has their own separate goal within the book, but they come together at the end in such a really interesting way. The ending really made this book for me, especially in regards to like Laya's perspective, because she really isn't my favorite and she wasn't the one that was pulling me into this. So it was nice to see her have a really impactful final chapter perspective. Helen, as I mentioned, is the absolute star of this series for me, the absolute most memorable character. I really, really, really enjoy reading from her perspective, and I cannot wait to see how her character finally develops within the last book. I'm so entertained by the series. Sabaa Tahir hasn't really ever let me down in any of the books I've read from her yet, so very excited to move into A Sky Beyond the Storm. I've only read about like 20 pages, so I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, just that I started it. I am going to leave soon to go for coffee with my friend on my lunch break because I went to the gym this morning instead of on my lunch break. So I will do that and I will see you later. So I wanted to do a quick update for A Sky Beyond the Storm because I did get 200 pages, 225 pages into this one. And so far I am enjoying this, but it's definitely an accumulation of all the different plot points coming together. And I think not that it's bad in any way, but it's definitely not, I think, as engaging as the other 3 books. For me, the other 3 books really start with all of them in different places and then coming together as they've kind of adapted to what's going on with them. At this point, they're all really together, but not really working together, but also really working together. And I don't know the best way to describe that without getting into spoilers, but I think that just because their stories are all very similar at this point, because they're all working towards a means to an end, I'm not really enjoying it as much, which I think is a downfall because I have loved every other book in the series. And I think this would have worked better as like maybe a 5-book series, because I feel like a lot is happening right now. And I don't know. I don't know how to discuss it because I don't know how I'm feeling about it. I know my friend Lucy over at Looney Lucy, I'll leave a link to her channel down below. This is her favorite series, but even when I look at her review of this last book, she doesn't like it quite as much as the other ones. So once I'm done this book, I'm really going to look into people's ideas of the book, because right at this moment, I'm not really feeling the pull to this book as much. And even though a lot is going on in the plot, I feel like the issue here is that there's not a lot happening to the character development, which is something that I was praising this series for, having a very good balance, having an engaging plot that kept me reading, that kept me speeding through the book, which I am still doing, but having those character interactions and dynamics that was appealing to me as a character-driven reader more than it is right now. So I'm going to continue reading this. I don't know if or when I will finish it today. I might read until the 250 page mark, maybe even the 300 page mark, and start something else just to get like a little break from this, to really see if what's going on with the plot seeps in and I remember everything, or if it's just kind of like bang, 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 this is all happening, but nothing really sticks to me as a reader. So I will let you know. Hello, so it is finally time to end the vlog, time to talk about my final thoughts of A Sky Beyond the Storm. And I have to say, guys, this was such a disappointing ending. It's mostly because I really did not find this book to have the charm and character moments that I've really grown to love and expect from this series. I think you could really see my disappointment in the fact that, first of all, I haven't updated in a while. And 2, just by the way I felt going into the first half of this book. Tahir is still an amazing writer, and I will definitely read whatever she publishes in the future. But I felt as though her world building really faltered in this final book. There was a lot that needed to be covered. And I feel like Tahir probably needed even one more book to do so. I felt really detached from the main characters in this one. And I believe it is because there was so much plot happening to move the story forward that our characters felt really left behind and faltered because of that. A lot of the plot felt really complicated, and it was surmounted by the fact that it felt like so much was happening, but nothing that was happening felt impactful. I often had to reread scenes because I didn't fully understand like what was happening and how it related overall. I still really love our 3 main characters. I appreciate where they ended up at the end of the book, and they are definitely what pulled me through finishing this book, but it was definitely a struggle. And I gave this 3 stars, which is it's such a sad way to end a vlog, sad way to end a series. So let's talk about the concept of this vlog series. Did I finish the series? Yes. Do I feel complete finishing this series? Yes, because I did end up really enjoying A Reaper at the Gates. I think that until this point, the series was really good. It was engaging. The plot was fast but made sense. The character dynamics felt important. What was happening to the characters felt important. And I felt like that just faltered in the last book. So am I happy I completed the series? Yes. Am I happy I completed it back to back? Yes, because I think so much happens in this book that it would have felt really confusing and much worse, I think, if I didn't already understand what was going on when going into this book. That is another series checked off for the year. Am I happy I read it? Yes, of course. I still really like Sabaa Tahir, and like I mentioned, I will read anything she publishes in the future. Have you read the Ember's Quartet? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you feel the same way as me? Let me know. And of course, if you would like to see anything else I am reading, I always leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the vlog, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It does wonders for my channel. It makes me feel really good. And that's it. I don't know how to end these things. See you next time with another video. Okay, bye.